WISL. We're live until 1 p.m. or till 2 p.m. Excuse me. It's 1 p.m. now. Give us a call 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. Coming to have a long weekend, folks. That's how it goes. All right. So again, 585-346-3000, or we're streaming online to a Free Solution Facebook page, a Free Solution YouTube channel, the Free Solution group, the Kevin Wilson page, Kevin Wilson Twitter, wherever you're listening today. Appreciate y'all being here. And again, leave your comments online if you want to participate in the discussion. And got a lot of things to talk about today, folks. And again, the stuff with Joe Biden last week that I didn't get to talk about on Monday, and I was on another show actually. No, I'm just going to mention that briefly. I'll post a link. Y'all can tell me what you think, but I'll talk about what I talked about on that show just briefly, because Tim and I talked about it on our Thursday show, or well, it ended up being a Sunday show last week, where we just do our normal thing, online only, riff about a whole bunch of stuff. That's always a fun show. So make sure you're following a Free Solution on Facebook, YouTube, etc., to make sure you catch those shows, because those ones are always fun. And so we'll talk about that. We'll talk about maybe we'll get to it, the water crisis going on in Jackson, Mississippi. We'll see if we can get to that. But first, I wanted to mention the Biden democracy speech, because I hadn't gotten to talk about it here on this show yet. Again, Tim and I talked about it on Sunday, but it wasn't as frightening as folks on Twitter made it sound. It wasn't as terrible, except for the lighting. The lighting was bad, right? And it's so interesting because it's the debate that it ended up igniting within libertarian circles is like, well, what's so great about democracy anyway, right? Again, the argument that folks want to make about that, the argument that they think they're making about that is, well, what rights should be subject to a Democratic majority? If you're in a Democratic minority, again, the 51%, 60% of the country says that you should have a certain right taken away, or you have fewer privileges than other folks, fewer rights than other folks. Is that a legitimate way of coming to decisions? And at what level should those decisions be made? And here's my big take on democracy, is that it's the worst form of government except for all the others, to kind of paraphrase Winston Churchill a bit. It's good to have some accountability to the people, but you need to have some fundamental rights that cannot be violated regardless of the will of the majority, right? There are certain fundamental rights that we put in the Constitution, and we say the government cannot violate these inherent rights, like freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, the right to self-defense. The government is restricted from violating those rights, even if there is a will of the majority to change those rights. And that in order to overcome that threshold, it's very, very difficult to change the Constitution. It's a whole process. And that's why there's not constant constitutional amendments. It's because those are things about the government that should be stable, that people should be able to expect that. But sometimes you do need to change the Constitution to clarify whose rights are protected and who ought to be able to participate in our systems of government, and what rights are protected. And again, we have good amendments like the 13th Amendment banning slavery. We had, the 14th Amendment that provides equal rights, the 15th Amendment that guarantees the right to vote to every man, and then the 19th Amendment that guarantees the right to vote for everyone regardless of gender or sex. And yeah, we'll get to one of these comments already. One Facebook user says, should any majority, should they be able to define your rights? Again, for the most part, no. It should be, there are certain rights that are inherent. That's why we live in a constitutional republic. Tim O'Connor says, what's great about democracy? If I'm on the winning side, I get to use force on the foes that I vanquished. That's the worry. That's the worry that the founding fathers had too, that you could have a mob mentality that takes over and violates those rights. And another Facebook user says, Not even a libertarian majority? No, I don't know that that is going to work out either. Again, we have to come to a consensus on decision making powers about who gets to be subject to what rights when. In the same way, I don't necessarily want one single autocrat to be able to make a unilateral decision about what rights and powers that they have. The fickle majority shouldn't necessarily get that either. And again, the example of that is just because there is a majority of people who would want to take away the rights of immigrants, who might want to take away the rights of black people, who which at a time in our country was an actual threat to democracy, who might want to take away our right to bear arms, who might want to take away the right to free speech in a moment of panic. Yeah, those rights need to be protected, regardless of what the majority says. It doesn't matter how well it polls. There are certain rights that need to be protected. And that's the balance that we have in a constitutional republic. And then the other part is, again, what majority where gets to make those decisions? Is it a national majority? Is a majority of your state? Is it a majority of your town? Where do those decisions get made? And that's where we get into the separation of powers in the Constitution. It, again, I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about that. Like, what does democracy actually mean? Where is it good? When you have the press secretary talking about, like, well, if you're not in a majority, you're an extremist. Like, half the Biden administration's positions, for better or worse, have been minority positions at some point. Just because you're in a minority does not mean that you are an extremist. It doesn't mean that you are bad. And I don't just say that because I'm often not in the majority opinion, but there are certain things that you should and can and ought to fight for, even when it's unpopular. And there are many rights that need to be fought for in various ways throughout this country, including many of the equal rights that people have, regardless of race, regardless of gender and sexuality, regardless of sexual orientation. All those things like are good, but were very unpopular for a long point in time. And if you constantly subject yourself to whatever is popular at any given point in time, you could end up hurting people without power, especially when they don't get a voice in that system in the first place. And that's why we have two houses of Congress. We have the House of Representatives, and we have the Senate. In part, the House is supposed to represent the will of the majority. The Senate is supposed to be more long term, long reaching. That's why we have the 6-year terms for Senate. They're supposed to take that long point of view. Now, does it always work out that way? No, absolutely not. It doesn't always work out the way that we hoped. And then we continue to make tweaks to that system to make it more effective, hopefully. Doesn't always work out that way, but that's the hope, right? And yeah, let's we'll get to another comment from Patty, who says more voices at the table brings more representation of the people. Two parties don't do that. Yeah, that's part of it too, right? Like the way our incentives and regulations around the party system, the way they're set up, it really drives people into a two-party system. That's both an inherent feature of first past the post systems. Well, not inherent, but it's a feature that tends to emerge in first past the post systems like we have. And it's also just a way that the rules and regulations are structured on getting things like ballot access as well. That's part of it. And it leaves a lot of people unrepresented or forced to choose among two less than perfect options. So let's go. We have a caller on the line, though. Gene from Rochester. Gene, what's on your mind? We'll do a free solution.
How you doing?
What's up, Gene?
I was just listening about democracy and the founding fathers. I was doing some reading and some research, and nowhere on any of the documents will you find the word democracy. It's
No, they found it terrifying.
Yeah, they hated democracy because, like you were saying, if 51% of the people want something, the other 49% are denied their rights. Where in the constitutional republic, 99% of the people can't take away the rights of 1%.
Yeah.
And it's just democracy is people are really living in a different world sometimes when they think that that's the best form of government. That's not what they wanted way back when.
No, and just because the founding fathers say something doesn't mean we have to go along with it, right? Like I'll throw that out there, but like they did have a few good points on that, right? Like again, as you said, we don't want the rights of 1% of the population subject to 99% of the population if the rights of the 1% of the population matter. Again, those fundamental rights of free speech, free association, self-defense, all these things, they shouldn't be
You're
subject
born
to.
with those rights, according to the Constitution and everything else,
That's right. And that's why we don't have a pure democracy. Again, we have a constitutional republic that tries to introduce some elements of democratic decision making in terms of electing officials, but there's still certain things where we don't want to violate the rights of people, no matter how unpopular or small of a minority that they are.
Right. I mean, it's supposed to equal freedom, but it really ends up equaling one world order because, if both parties are controlled, the people are controlled.
Yeah. Well, Gene, I appreciate the call, and I appreciate that insight too. Again, bringing it back to the founding fathers, always important. They did not want the direct election of the president. Even that's why we have the electoral college system. They didn't want Democratic majorities to end up running muck or getting attached to a popular leader who could again take away the rights of people who may not be popular at that time.
Right.
Yeah. And so again, really good points. Appreciate the phone call, Gene. Anything else to add before we had the break?
Well, just remember, divide and conquer has been around for millennia. So divide and rule, divide and conquer, whatever you want to call it.
Very true. All right. Thanks again, Gene. Appreciate the call. And again, that's that's when as we're talking about all this stuff about democracy and what sort of system that we have, I think it's important to put that in context. What system do we actually have where there are democratic elements, but you still have some fundamental rights that are not subject to democratic majorities? Thanks again for listening to A Free Solution. Give us a call if you want to participate in the show, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Hey, this is Kevin Wilson, host of A Free Solution. You ever needed a tool for just one project, but didn't want to spend the cash for something you'd use just once or twice? Well, there's a new tool library in Rochester where you can borrow just the thing you need instead of buying a new one. It's called the Tool Shed from the Southeast Area Coalition, and membership starts at just $25 a year. Use it for home projects or to support your business. Learn more and become a member at seektoolshed.org. That's SEAC toolshed.org.
Only available in the WISL store at WISL1040.com. Official top quality tees, hoodies, and coffee mugs depicting the colorful WISL logo or the already famous Mount Worstmore line of merch depicting Mount Rushmore style are for worst presidents. Of course, you know who is front and center up on that mountain. WISL official items make perfect gifts, or they're a great way for you to make a personal statement. Locally produced and sold only in the WISL store at WISL1040.com.
A free solution on the WYSL stations.
All right. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host today. Thanks again for joining us. We're live here on WYSL until 2 p.m. give us a call, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. So talking about democracy a bit today, and again, the Joe Biden red lighting speech, the Dark Brandon speech. You guys haven't seen this. Is like a progressive meme that goes around. Dark Brandon. He's Joe Biden just doing radical things to push the agenda and own the MAGA right or whatever, right? Like it's just a spin on what memers have been doing for a while. But besides the lighting, some of the other aspects of the speech, right? You start building this conception, folks. The speech to me felt very much like a campaign speech. It's I would have liked to see a nice unifying speech that gets people to respect a set of shared values, like their association with democracy. Again, most of how the average person views Democratic Republic, the democratic mechanisms in which we can come to some decision making, because there's things like referendums where we decide, okay, we're gonna put this up to a democratic vote. There's the democratic mechanisms for deciding who gets elected, imperfect as they are, and those systems can come under threat, right? And then you do see that in folks who are making sometimes valid but often baseless claims about elections being invalid. And it's not just like the folks on the Democratic left, they like to point out the Republicans who have done it, people like Trump who've done that and tried to challenge the legitimacy of the electoral processes, but they're not the only ones doing that. We remember back in the 2016 election, Hillary Clinton was saying that, like, oh, the Russians helped Trump, blah, 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 the Russians. And people like Stacey Abrams also did that. And I don't want to whataboutism the whole thing, but like those are, they can be threats that undermine the perceived legitimacy of elections and can erode the process, the democratic process, small d democratic process that underlies what makes our particular system of a constitutional republic work. And the government should and ought to do things to reinforce confidence in those systems and actually do things to make them more effective. There's some bills out there that could do that, right? And that's something that Joe Biden could have talked about. Didn't talk about like the threats to the left, though. He talked about, he wanted to name call, he wanted to talk about the MAGA semi-fascists and stuff. And there are some ugly folks out there. There is a legitimate threat on the right to our constitutional republic. It does exist. There's also one on the left too. And Joe Biden, moderate, that I dislike for many, many reasons, could have picked the things that unify folks among Republicans, Democrats, and independents and talked about, like, here's what we have in common, here's what we share, here's are the ways that we can protect our values that exist outside of the extremes on any side. Didn't do that. Tim O'Connor says, unify or else. And again, that was part of it, like, unify with my vision or else. And it's, again, not picking up those shared values, picking up those things in which we can say, yes, for all of our differences, here are the handful of things that we agree on, and we need to make sure that we shore up those institutions and those processes where there's some doubt, there's some shakiness, where people are worried about election fraud, where people are worried about the legitimacy of election, they're worried about access to elections. Again, whether it's counting ballots, okay, cool, like whether it's the electoral college process, whether it's who gets to vote, or what is a fair system for how far you have to go or how long you have to wait for. Okay, like let's talk about those things and work towards a consensus. This, I think, failed in doing that, and it just said, okay, anyone who's on Team MAGA at any time, like, they're an extremist, but like that's a lot of folks. And again, many of you listening to the station, and I don't always agree with you, like, but there's probably a lot more that we have in common than don't. And there's an opportunity for presidents like Biden, Trump could have done this, Obama could have, anyone could have done this to unify folks around a set of shared values. But it's so cutthroat, it's so zero sum now that I don't think his base would have let him. They want to see Dark Branded. They want to see him be aggressive. They want to see him win. And if President Biden wants to be the good president that I'm sure he sees himself as, and he's going to have to contend with the reality of the Republicans are probably going to win at least the House. Okay, how are you going to unify folks to get stuff done that he wants to get stuff done? Again, around those sets of shared values, around reinforcing the integrity of our electoral process, around making sure that we actually control inflation. I mean, I don't think the Inflation Reduction Act is going to do that. I think there's more pain ahead. What is the federal government going to do? What tough decisions can they make? What consensus can they come to do that stuff? Now, again, I don't have a ton of faith in that. I would probably not agree with those solutions. I'm used to that as a libertarian, but that is what, as a political perspective, as American, I would hope that they can come to something that is effective. And will they? Nah, probably not. But that's what I hope for. I hope they come to something, and I hope it works. Probably won't, but I hope it does. I don't know. With all this stuff, I don't think that Biden's on the verge of taking any drastic action against MAGA Republicans. Again, I think it was like a campaign speech, and he could do better. I don't know what to expect. I feel like a lot of our leaders are failing us in these moments. They could do better. They could unite. They could do things to make our republic stronger, and they fail because they keep falling to the partisan impulses that they have. It's about winning that next election. It's about doing that next thing to get your team a victory. And you get with all these threats of like, oh my goodness, we have to worry about these MAGA Republicans. The Democratic Party funded a bunch of them, literally put millions of dollars towards candidates that they're defining as extremists, that they're defining as semi-fascist. You know, again, the guy out in Michigan who beat Pew Meyer, the candidate for governor in Pennsylvania, these are the people that they're defining this way, and they're funding them. The Democratic Party is. Again, maybe you like these folks, but like they did get funded by Democrats because the Democrats think that they're so extreme that they're going to lose. And I made this point before. They did that with Trump too. They're like, we're gonna put a bunch of money towards this guy, or not money, but they're gonna give this guy a bunch of coverage. They're gonna put the spotlight on him because, my goodness, they thought he's so ridiculous that people will see this and be terrified of the Republican Party and flock to us. How did that work out for Hillary Clinton? How did it work out for her? Again, this isn't a comment on Trump himself. I have my own criticism, but like this is a comment on the Democratic strategy. They're warning us that like these folks are fascists, and then giving them money to make sure that they win their primaries so that their milquetoast Democrat candidates have a shot. Sometimes it works, but that's a risky strategy, and it undermines the sincerity of what they claim they're doing. Just the absolute utter hypocrisy of the whole thing kills me. But we go to the next one. I'm gonna switch topics after this, you know. But just to wrap it up, yeah, the democratic process. There is a role for democracy in the processes that we have and the policies that we need to create. We don't live in a pure democracy. We have rights to protect. And again, the Democratic Party is not doing a good job bringing folks together right now. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. We're going to be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon.
Pray for the USA.
WYSL.
AM 1040 Avon Rochester, FM 92.1 Rochester, and FM 95.5 Spencerport.
Here's the new NBC forecast on WYSL. For tonight, we'll see a low temperature of 61 degrees under mostly cloudy skies, and there is a chance for an isolated shower, but mainly early tonight. Going into tomorrow, we'll see cloudy skies to start, but a mix of sun and clouds in the afternoon. Also in the afternoon, there is a slight chance for a sprinkle, but with some sun, we'll see a high of 79. Going into Thursday night, we'll see partly cloudy skies with a low of 58. I'm First Alert Meteorologist Alex Bielfeld on your WYSL stations.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovation should be your first call. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
With energy costs on the way up, you want to keep cool and comfortable inside, and the sizzling heat and humidity outside. When you keep air-conditioned air inside, you'll keep more of your money in your wallet. Chamberlain Construction reminds you, even if your home is relatively new, insulation technology has advanced rapidly, no matter whether your home or other building is recent or historic. Consult with Chamberlain about an insulation upgrade to save on energy. And whatever your need, they can handle it. Commercial or residential, roofing, siding, kitchens, baths, decks, porches, remodeling, bump outs, garages, with the best in materials and workmanship, over 30 years of reliable, ethical experience anywhere in the region. Now's the perfect time to get your important project underway. Call Chamberlain Construction Dansville, 370-5959, 370-5959. Contact Lee Chamberlain at lee@chamberlainconstruction.com. That's Chamber, L-I-N.
WYSL.
What's better than a walk with friends and family, all while supporting one of this community's most important nonprofit agencies? Mary Cariola Center is proud to present the 14th annual Walking on Sunshine event on Sunday, September 18th at the Penfield Veterans Memorial Park. The largest fundraiser of the year for Mary Cariola, Walking on Sunshine raises much needed funds to assist in the education and care of children, youth, and young adults with intellectual developmental disabilities, as well as complex medical conditions. Cariola's 73 years of service to the community needs your help to continue vital services in their school and residence. Walking on Sunshine, September 18th. Register at marycariola.org/walk. Come on out, walk, have a free lunch, bid on great prizes, and have fun for the Cariola kids.
This fall, find new roads with a new ride from Victor Chevrolet. Now, lease a 2022 Chevy Trailblazer LT for just $269 a month for 36 months. $2,500 cash or trade required. If you need a pickup, get the versatility of a 2022 Chevy Silverado Custom LTD Crew Cab for just $399 a month for 24 months. $2,500 cash or trade in closing. And then there's the 2022 Chevy Equinox All-Wheel Drive LT, only $269 a month for 36 months. $2,500 cash or trade equity in closing. And don't forget, Victor Chevrolet has an unbeatable pre-owned selection. Whether it's a Chevy or not, trust your vehicle to our Chevy Certified Service Department. Come see how easy it is to do business with us. Find new roads at Victor Chevrolet, Route 96 in Victor. Visit VictorChevrolet.com. These lease deals include returning lessee rebate. All factory rebates, incentives, and discounts are applied. Security deposit is waived. 10,000 mile allowance per year, 25 cents each additional mile. Must have leasing household. Tier 1 credit approval required. Lessee responsible for repair and maintenance. Conditions apply. Get details at dealer.
It may not be today, but when the time comes that you do need dependable home electrical service, Nichols Electric is here for you. Honesty is what we built our business on. Honesty is what we bring to you.
Nichols Electric, your electrician for life.
NicholsEP.com.
Explore all things hops at Genesee Country Village and Museum this Saturday. Tour a working 19th century brewery. Sample local craft beer and historical recipes. Enjoy live music in the beer garden this Saturday. Get tickets at gcv.org.
A free solution on the WYSL stations.
Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host today. Thanks again for joining us. We're live here on WYSL until 2 p.m. Give us a call, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. And, of course, we're live on the Free Solution Facebook page, Free Solution YouTube channel, Free Solution group page, the Kevin Wilson page, and the Kevin Wilson Twitter account. Wherever you're listening today, thank you for being here. And we're talking democracy today. I was talking about how, like, unfortunately, both Democrats and Republicans have failed to protect the good aspects of democracy. Because, again, I do think that there is some role for majorities to play in some policy decisions, but you do have some rights that ought to not be violated. And, again, the libertarian in me says those should go a lot further even than what we have now. But sometimes you do need to build a popular consensus, and that provides a better check on power than just an authoritarian, a king, a dictator who is not subject to any popular support at all, because that's a different kind of dangerous. And speaking of which, I had mentioned earlier in the show that I'd gone on another radio show, and I talked about and I ended up being a guest talking about the student loan forgiveness thing, and Joe Biden's plan to reform some parts of the student loan process. And I won't get into like the specifics of that show. You can see it on my Facebook page. Go listen to it. It's good discussion. But there's one thing, well, a couple of things that are relevant to my discussion here on democracy that ended up getting brought up during that show. And one is the other guest. He kind of started talking about this during the break, and then he goes on about it during the show. It's like, well, the constitutional aspect of the Joe Biden student loan forgiveness doesn't really matter all that much. And his take was, well, the Supreme Court would probably just go after anything anyway. They're going to act in bad faith. So why should Joe Biden care about that? And there's some arguments to be had that it is constitutional, it is legal, et cetera, that it's based on some statute, right? But there's also a good argument to be made that it isn't constitutional, that people like Nancy Pelosi, of all folks, have said, no, the president can't just unilaterally forgive loans, that process, that spending power needs to go through Congress, since you're not exactly spending money, but you're failing to collect money that Congress has asked you to collect. Therefore, Congress is the one who has the power to do this thing. It needs to go through them. And there's a lot of Democrats who are like, who cares if it's constitutional? Why does it matter? The Republicans do unconstitutional things all the time. It's a really dangerous road to go down. Now you see Republicans make the same argument. Like they'll make I've heard them make the argument about stuff Ron DeSantis does, stuff that Trump did, and they're like, well, who cares? Democrats do unconstitutional stuff. Like let's go ahead and do this. It doesn't matter. Like we just need to win here. This policy is gonna to help people. This policy is gonna be the best thing right now. We really can't fall into that temptation. Again, this is what Joe Biden said. I've made this criticism. He did the same thing with the vaccine mandates that were going through OSHA. He knew darn well that stuff wasn't constitutional and that was going to get slapped down. He was hoping that it could get through quick enough that it wouldn't matter. That by the time the courts got around to stopping it, it would already be an accomplished feat, and he could just claim victory. That the good would have already been done. And we're seeing the same thing with Kathy Hochul here in New York with the new gun laws. She knows darn well that doesn't pass the constitutional smell test. Like there's so many ridiculous parts of that. And the only reason, I know one of the lawsuits got shut down, but it's because the person didn't have standing. So there's still other stuff going on in challenging the new gun laws here in New York State. But she doesn't care that's not constitutional, because there's starting to be an erosion within the Democratic Party, and there's a similar erosion going on in the Republican Party of a breakdown in the legitimacy of the constitutional checking process, of the checks and balances themselves, that the courts are not legitimate. And that's, again, the point that the other guest with me on this other show had made is like, well, who cares? It's going to help people. And why should Joe Biden let a bad faith Supreme Court, bad faith members of Congress, and others stop him from doing that. And I'm kind of embarrassed. I wish I had pushed back on this more. I felt like I'd already made the point a couple times that the law was unconstitutional, so I just kind of like let that sit there because I thought it was bad. I wish I had pushed back on that more though during that show because it does matter. Like Democrats, Republicans, whoever is elected, does matter if we do stuff that's unconstitutional because the rule of law matters. That we have laws that govern what powers the executive has, what powers Congress has, what powers are left to the federal government, what powers are left to the states, and what rights and powers are associated with the people themselves. And throwing all that out and leaving powers and actions of the government to just the arbitrary feelings of whoever happens to be in office or the arbitrary feelings of whatever is popular right now is an incredibly dangerous thing. And for all their talk, again, this goes back to the hypocrisy of the Democratic Party too. For all their talk about and worry about Donald Trump and his abuse of executive power, and he certainly did abuse executive power in many ways. I'm sure I'll get some feedback about that, but he did, and I've talked about it on the show a lot. If they're so terrified of that, then don't allow the executive to do that. Don't allow the executive to get away with that. You can't say like, "Oh, Trump was a demagogue and his time, blah blah blah," and then when Biden does the same exact stuff or worse, say nothing or excuse it or say it's a good thing. No, you need to take away the power itself because if you have someone who is actually dangerous in office, let's say there's some hypothetical future dangerous person that is either the worst Democrat, Republican, whoever that you could imagine, would you want them having the power that presidents have now? Or would you want that to be subject to the Constitution and wills of the majority? Yeah, you'd rather have that. But again, we're seeing culturally, left and right, that restraint on power erode. And people are just, well, who cares? It's just a matter of what you can get done, not a matter of what's lawful and what is constitutional. That doesn't matter. It does still matter. It matters not because of agreeing or disagreeing about what is taking place now, but what could happen in the future. What happens when you have given so much power to a single office that it is so wildly easy to abuse that suddenly your liberty can evaporate overnight. Democrats have lost sight of that, and Republicans have too. Yeah, a lot of average people, a lot of folks listen to the station. I know they haven't. Just be careful when your person is in office. Just be careful. Think about how that power could or will be abused when someone you disagree with has those same abilities. It's a problem. And kind of a related note too. Again, something I was a little bit shocked to see during that conversation is the ability to. This goes back to kind of like the mob rule mentality too. Is like the ability to be able to buy votes. And it was wild to hear the other guests talk about like, oh yeah, like I know college educated folks lean Democrat, and why shouldn't we help them? Republicans give away stuff to folks all the time. Why shouldn't we do this to likely Democratic voters? Why shouldn't we just give them a now, I'm kind of paraphrasing, but again, you can listen to that show. It's the links on my page if you want to hear what his argument was. But basically, it was why shouldn't we buy votes? Because we can, and they don't care about the constitutional question. We might as well get what we can while we can, raid the treasury because the Republicans are doing the same thing. Again, and Republicans I've heard make that same argument. Well, Democrats are spending this, that, and the other thing. So why shouldn't we? No, don't stop. Someone's got to be the adult. Someone's got to be the responsible person who says, "Hey, this is expensive, and the people we're giving the money away to don't need it. Why are we doing this? Does it make sense? This isn't a matter of helping out the neediest. This is a matter of supporting a favored political constituency." Again, it was shocking for me sitting in there, like to see someone across from me be like, straight up, yeah, like that's what we're doing here, and it's a good thing. Wild that someone would just admit to that, but yeah, here we are, and yeah, it's I don't I don't know. Again, it's interesting to see that presented in that way. Again, it isn't the only time it happens. Politicians do that for their preferred voters. They do it for themselves too. There's a tweet that I put out the other day with ads that are run based on like franking privileges. And this is like members of Congress are able to put out communications like mailers and other stuff based on, communicating with their constituents, and they're able to do so. They changed the rules recently, I guess, where they can do so instead of up to 90 days before, up to 60 days before an election. So there's a Joe Morelli ads talking about his stances on abortion. There are, constituent communications, put in quotes here for those of you listening on the radio. You paid for that. Like, why? Why are we paying for this stuff? And this is just a way for politicians to be able to use incumbency advantage to take our money and support their policies and their reelection campaigns and their ability to abuse the bully pulpit that they have. Everyone's raiding the candy box, right? Like, everyone's going after this stuff. They're giving it away to their friends. They're giving it away to themselves. They're giving it. They're just spending money wastefully, left and right. And there has to be some mechanisms for controlling that. And I don't know exactly what that is. I don't know if that's something that we have to win through the popular will. I don't know if that's a restriction that needs to be in the Constitution that shouldn't be touched, that shouldn't be subject to the popular will all the time, because there's always that temptation. Oh, we could just bribe voters with their own money. And we need to get away from it, or it's going to destroy what we have left of a constitutional republic. All right, thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. And we come back. There's a couple of that. I'll switch gears again. I think I'm going to move away from the democracy subject, and we'll talk to some more specific issues. But give us a call if you want to weigh in on it, though. I'll come back to it for you. 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Hey, this is Kevin Wilson, host of A Free Solution. You ever need a tool for just one project, but didn't want to spend the cash for something you'd use just once or twice? Well, there's a new tool library in Rochester where you can borrow just the thing you need instead of buying a new one. It's called the Tool Shed from the Southeast Area Coalition, and membership starts at just $25 a year. Use it for home projects or to support your business. Learn more and become a member at seektoolshed.org. That's SEAC toolshed.org.
Hi, Bob Savage here with a boost and good news for business owners and managers. We know it's been tough sledding with government working against you post-pandemic, so we've come up with a low-cost ad package, and for a limited time, once you're a WYSL advertiser, we'll run a bonus that's free extra schedule for job openings you're trying to fill. We'll feature your business and describe the positions you have open, all at absolutely no charge. At the WYSL stations, we're not just the voice of liberty, we're the small business friend. Call 346-3000 for details. All major credit cards welcome.
A free solution on the WYSL stations.
Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson-Jones today. Thanks again for joining us live here until 2 p.m. on WYSL. Give us a call on 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. And yeah, we're talking democracy today. And again, this is a slight change of subject, but I got to segue for this. I promise. I want to talk about the stuff going on with the water in Jackson, Mississippi. And if you haven't heard of this, there's down in Jackson, Mississippi, big, decent sized city down there that they kind of lost all access to public water. Everyone has to drink bottled water there for the most part, and it's It's apparently it was made worse by some recent flooding there. The recent flooding just wrecked their water treatment facility, and but it's kind of been one of those things that's been going on for a while in the same way that like there were warning signs before what happened in Flint. There are warning signs in these cities all over the place. And here's what kills me. It kills me again. This was stuff that was known about. This was stuff that people at the local level, at the city level, at the county level, at the state level, at the federal level knew about this stuff. They knew it was a problem. And for all of the talk of like, well, we need government to come in and help and build the infrastructure to take care of people, they utterly failed here. Again, and this isn't a Democrat, Republican. This is a failure at a systematic level. Because if you're promised that, well, if you pay these taxes, this infrastructure is going to be taken care of, and it ends up not happening because of wasted money, because of expensive regulatory and review processes. If you have to do expensive environmental reviews because of misplaced priorities. Oh, we're going to put it off this year to spend money on something else. And just getting overlooked too. Again, who pays for this? Where they pay for it? What gets paid for? It's a systematic failure. And again, while the folks involved in this process point fingers and lay blame and say, nope, this is the Republicans who did that at the state level. No, this is the Democrats who did this at the local level. It's the same. It's like a total repeat of what happened with the Flint water crisis. Like just the same thing, the finger pointing, the blame, and we're going to see the same thing. Like how could we let this happen in America? Now